So tonight we are launching this exhibition, which is Lights Up on Liverpool. So it is a snapshot of Liverpool's theatre history from the 1700s up to the present day.
Well, last year for the World Theatre Day in March 2023, we decided ArtsGroupie ran a walking tour which explored the theatres that are here in Liverpool and the theatres that are no longer here. And we found it really interesting that to see what we'd lost, but also what we've got at the moment and what we could lose if we don't use it more. So we were invited by the Liverpool Library and Archives Service to go and visit the extensive archive on Liverpool history, and particularly the theatres that are no longer here, like the Shakespeare, the Prince of Wales, the Theatre Royal. We began that journey a year and a half ago, and this is where we are today. We've been dipping in and finding all kinds of treasures and hidden histories, which we have essentially created a snapshot of what we've been looking at over the last year and a half. And sadly, not all the information that we could have on display is on display.
Through that history, we get a real good look at Liverpool's social fabric and how it changes with time through its theatre. And also we're doing it in response to the low level of working class people in the arts now, which is now less than 1 in 10. Workers in the arts are actually working class, so it's really, really low. And through Liverpool's theatre history, we see how much working class people have contributed to the UK's theatre scene.
There's only 13 cases here in the Hornby room and of varying sizes, so we've had to be very limited on what we could put on display.
Well, to be honest, I'm really, really proud to be asked to be involved in it at all. My step into theatre happened roundabout and was involved with this library, and it was, of course, that changed my life, as it were, and my family and friends all came with me on this journey.
Materials that we've chosen reflect the massive contribution that the working class people have had on Liverpool theatres, and this is mission critical at the moment because so many working class people are not allowed to get into the arts. There's a lot of obstacles now more than ever.
I also know, as a young person growing up in Liverpool in the 50s and 60s, the choice that we had then is not what we're giving our younger people now.
So, if anything, this will highlight and a call to arms to get people to be interested in the arts and to make sure that they're getting out and using the theatres that we have in our wonderful city.
I have seen firsthand the difference theatre makes to people, children particularly. If you can grab children's interest when they're younger and they want to get involved, it does them good. It teaches them how to be confident, how to listen, how to speak, how to enjoy themselves.
A really mad story about that. I was learning the monologue, and my little girl was 2.5.
Yeah.
And she must have been just sitting listening. And then one day we're sitting at my mum's and she suddenly went, "Oh, Brian, was I on before?" And reeled the whole monologue off. She's got like a photographic memory.
Having been homeless in the past, really wasn't sure whether I always wanted to be in the arts. Something in my blood, just really always wanted to be on stage, creating stuff, making art. I never thought that I would be able to. So being here now and being in this privileged position really to be working freelance and doing what I love as my career, I just want that for everyone. I want everybody to have the chance to, if they want to access the arts, to be able to come into it. At the moment, there's so many barriers, there's so much gatekeeping, and we want to be part of the solution in changing that. We want to make a difference. So this is the start by highlighting history, evidencing what we lose if we lock working class people out of the arts. It means a lot to me.
Norman conquest, the theatre was enjoyed in Liverpool solely at West Derby Castle and Liverpool. There was a place there called Juggler Street. No prizes for guessing what kind of street theatre went on there. And then the Stanleys, the Earl of Derby in the 16th century, they were devoted patrons of the arts, and they would give performances for their guests here in Liverpool, at the Tower of Liverpool, while they were waiting to take for the tide to settle so they could go over to the Isle of Wight. Isle of Wight, yes. Isle of Man. I was getting Man and Wight mixed up. And it's my age, I'm saying. And then they also used to entertain people in a place called Latham, which is just by Ormskirk. Now, you had to be licensed to be an actor. Do any of you have any tattoos on your right arm?
Well, I do.
Well, don't show them, darling. Don't show them. The R would be tattooed on you if you were not a licensed actor. Can anyone hazard a guess what the R would stand for? If you weren't licensed, you weren't allowed to be acting. You weren't licensed by one of the nobles. Maybe I was right first time. One of the we'll call them. There's no nobility in the house today, is there? Of course, apart from Dame Duchess III. We'll just call them nobles then, yeah. So, if you were not a noble, and licensed by a noble, you would be brandished with an R. Can anyone hazard a guess what that would stand for? Reject. Oh, why did you look at me when you said that? Give a guy a complex.
It actually means rogue. Okay? Maybe that's where lovable rogue came from.
Potential. Oh, and you're
You
looking
must
at
have met me.
Oh, yes. No. Maybe, didn't Fanny play in a play called The Lovable Rogue?
Oh, she probably did. I mean, she was always playing, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And in America, she went to America.
The first official theatre was the Cockyard Theatre in Liverpool. And that was a small 50-foot, 20-foot stage which was candlelit. And then the great Thomas Steers. Can anyone tell me what Thomas Steers created in Liverpool? He was an engineer. He created the dock. I see we've got a very intelligent crowd today. Many of you ladies have partook in an avocado breakfast. It's good for the brain, allegedly. You need a few. Yeah. Anyhow, so Thomas Steers created the first ever theatre called the Old Ropery, and this was where Brunswick Street, where the old castle of King John used to stand. I believe the Queen Victoria is now there. Yeah. So
Queen Elizabeth Court.
The Queen Elizabeth Court, that's correct, yes, and there's the statue of the Queen Victoria. Have you all seen that Queen Victoria statue? Well, it's a very interesting statue.
She's very big.
She is, she's big in that area, I'm told. So anyhow, the only recorded performance from the Old Ropery was by a theatre company called the Small Alley Theatre Company, who were Irish, and they performed. That's the only one that's recorded. We're now in the Unity Theatre, so we're going to fast forward to the 1980s. This is a wonderful theatre, but the roots for the Unity go back to 1895. The earliest reference was in the January issue of the Labour Chronicle, which mentions the Liverpool Socialist Dramatic Society. Now, this was a group of left-wing artists and activists, and they were being formed all around the UK, known as the Left Book Theatre Guild. Now, they were London-based, and in the group's minutes of 1937, they acknowledged that formation of a Merseyside left theatre, a new branch in Liverpool. And a lot of the early productions of the left theatre were anti-war plays, fundraisers to support socialism, and Spanish fight against fascism. And it wasn't until 1980s that they moved. The 1980s, they actually settled in a home. Now, between 1937 and 1965, when they were kind of like out in all the different community hubs around Liverpool City region, their event, which was then known as Merseyside, they literally found a home in 1980, and the Unity Theatre has been here since. It's a wonderful theatre, and can anyone tell me a film that was directed by Chris Bernard and starred Margie Clark? Anyone? Letter to Brezhnev. How many of you haven't seen that film? Right, listen, tonight when you go home, forget your streaming devices and your wireless. What you need to do is go on the YouTube and have a look at the film Letter to Brezhnev. It's an amazing movie. Well, I did not know until we were researching, well, I wasn't researching because I was in the grave, but
Our friend John
was researching the archive of the theatre. Letter to Brezhnev was originally a stage theatre production before it was a film, and it was actually staged here in the Unity, which is fantastic.
It used to be a synagogue.
It did indeed. It was a synagogue, and it was converted into a theatre in 1980. So we're now on the wonderful Hope Street. How many of you have been to the Everyman Theatre? Wonderful. Has anyone not been to the Everyman Theatre? No? No. This is a new building, but the original building that was here was in 1837. Where's Kemble?
Everyman Theatre!
Everyman Theatre. If my colleague, if she was around in the 1980s, she would have been in that popular soap opera, Dallas. Do you remember that? Can anyone tell me what character she'd be? Sue Ellen. Sue Ellen. She was the chronic alcoholic.
Oh, you're trying to tell me I've got a problem?
Well, you've got several, darling. Where do you want me to start? The building that was originally here in 1837 was known as Hope Hall, and it was a dissenters chapel. The chapel was then converted in 1841 to a church for St. John the Evangelist. And then in 1853, can anyone tell me what it became? It became, you're getting very close, it was a concert hall first, and then it was transformed into Hope Hall Cinema. It was a cinema, can you believe it? Until 1963, the cinema had become a gathering place for many local artists. And then it was converted into a theatre, and it became a very popular theatre. In 1986, there was a fantastic play here about a woman who talked to a wall. Well, indeed. Talk to the wall. Can anyone tell me the name of that? Shirley Valentine. What a fantastic. Now, many actors have treaded the boards here. Sadly, Francois and I are yet, because clearly it's not for every man. No, or man. Or, yes. Now, can anyone tell me of any famous actors that launched their career here? Peter Postlethwaite, Julie Walters,
Matthew Kelly.
David Morrissey, Matthew Kelly, Bill Nighy. Does anyone know Anthony Sher? He was the RSC actor. He was a fool, as in King Lear's fool, not a fool. Anyone else? That's a good roll call, isn't it? So we were a hotbed for talent, and still are.
Yes.
Still are.
Always have been.
So David Morrissey was mentioned in 2011 when the theatre was going to be destroyed. They literally knocked the walls down. Can anyone tell me what production that would be? Yes, it was. And we don't say Macbeth when we're in a theatre, okay?
That's
Never
why
say
I never
it.
got to go on the stage.
You would have
Say
been
Macbeth.
believed, not the Hunchback, but you hadn't said Macbeth.
There we go.
Okay, so it's now managed with the Liverpool Playhouse under the Liverpool and Merseyside Theatres Trust. All good. Now let's walk quite briskly to get the blood pumping. We're going to head down the Bold Street and we're going to go to the former theatre Epstein. Here, Hanover House. The other side was the Epstein Theatre, 1913.
Sorry. The Epsom Theatre, 1913!
So my friends, the Crane Hall was the original building where the Epstein Theatre was. So the Crane Hall was designed by a very famous architect. Can any of you tell me it? The name of the architect? I'll give you a clue. This architect also designed the first skyscraper in Europe, which Liverpool. You're close, but no cigar. It was W. Aubrey Thomas. Who created what building? It's got two big birds by the building. So, and some of you have been on the Live of Bird Safari. Shame on you! Shame! It was completed in 1911, the same year that the Live building went up. It was a commercial building for the Crane brothers to house their elaborate music store. And at the back of the store, you could go upstairs to a theatre where you could practice on the old Joanna. It was the Crane Theatre, and then it turned into another theatre called the Neptune. Can anyone hazard a guess why it was called Neptune? Think about where we are. We're near the sea. Another lady who had that card this morning. The maritime connections of Liverpool. And then it was sadly threatened with closure several times. And in 1975, a very famous husband and wife couple performed here. Do any of you know them? Very famous husband and wife couple. The wife is still alive. She's a dame. Dame Judi Dench, and her husband was? Great. Everyone's panicking still on it. Oh, he's going to keep asking questions. It's such you get a bit of perverse satisfaction in asking people questions. It's great. It's like any teachers amongst us. It must be like it.
Power trip, everybody.
Now, it did close in 1993. A fundraiser was created by Dame Judi Dench and Michael Williams, and it reopened. And then sadly, in 2005, it was closed. 2011, it was closed from 2005 until 2011. Then it reopened and was named the Epstein after the Beatles manager. But sadly, some of you were on our walking tour last year, where we actually took people around the building, and that was the birth, if you like, of our theatre history exhibition. But sadly, it's closed, and it's still now. It's still now.
It wasn't our fault that it closed.
Yes, indeed. Well, she's got an orange in her belt. That's not something you see every day. So my friends, Clayton Square. Can anyone tell me why Clayton Square is called Clayton Square? It's named after a house. Clayton House. In 1861.
Clayton House, 1861!
There we are. Well, I've jumped a little bit, Pod. The Prince of Wales Theatre was 1861. What was it?
Careful.
Prince of Wales Theatre was 1861. Now, originally, this area, Clayton Square, was one of the best, most eloquent areas in Liverpool with fine gardens and houses. Well, you could say it's still the same, really, isn't it? Or to quote one of my favourite actresses, Betty Davis, who I'm channeling today, dressed like this, what a dump! Well, just where the B&M is, the Emporium, was where the location, roughly the location of the Prince of Wales Theatre. When you get to the exhibition, you can see black and white photos of it. So, the Prince of Wales Theatre was originally Clayton House. Clayton House was the home of Miss Clayton, and she was the daughter of Liverpool MP William Clayton. And sadly, as with a lot of MPs at the time, they made all their money from the slave trade. So it was built on the slave trade. Clayton House was converted, and the whole area was converted into shops and music halls. And Clayton Hall was converted to, Clayton House became Clayton Hall, and this was the place where you go and listen to many piano concertos, etc. In 1859, an Australian chap called Alexander Henderson was listening to a concert. He was listening to a concert and he was like, oh, this is so boring. He decided to buy the venue and turn it into a theatre, which he did. And he turned it into the Prince of Wales Theatre. Now, it was very successful for many years, so much so that Alexander created a new theatre around the corner called the New Prince of Wales Theatre. And eventually this theatre in 1901 had to change because it needed to compete with all the other theatres in the area. And they showed animated pictures by the North American Animated Photo Company. 10,000 animated pictures, including those of the Boer War and Chinese wars. And also a daily record of Liverpool life called Living Liverpool, which essentially was a 1901 version of the fake book that we all have now, really. All the pictures of Liverpool life. It became famous for its pantomimes in motion pictures, including Little Red Riding Hood, Puss in Boots. But sadly, in 1910, it turned into an auction room, and in 1912, it was demolished. So it's no longer here. When we get to the exhibition, you'll see photos of it. It was a majestic piece of theatre. Let's move on away from the coast.
Very modern.
These rogues singing and performing and whatnot very quickly. The Playhouse was originally known as the Star Hall. Oh.
The Playhouse!
In 1866, and it is. Are we making too much noise? No. I thought. Did anyone see when Helen Mirren there was an anti-war protest in London, and Helen Mirren went out kicking off because she was doing a matinee, and she went out. And guess what? She was dressed as the Queen. Because she was playing. It was to play the audience. She went, "Excuse me, I'm trying to play." Anyhow, so in 1847 there was a dwelling house here. That was a concert hall where you got free admission as long as you bought chops and wine. What a nice combination. Chops indeed. And then in 1866, at the cost of £22,000, was the erection of the Star Hall, which was situated here. In 1796, it was rebuilt into the building we see before us now. It was then called the Liverpool Palace of Varieties and was famous for the Blood and Thunder melodrama. Blood and Thunder melodrama. Indeed, and 13 acts a night. In 1911, it was closed and then bought by the Liverpool Rep Company, who formed the Liverpool Playgoers Society and became the establishment we know now. In 1942, can anyone tell me what was happening then? There was a war. So in London, the Old Vic was closed because of the bombs. So they all moved to Liverpool. And they literally were, the Old Vic took over the Liverpool in 1942. And in the 80s, it was fell into financial trouble. There's a pattern here, isn't there? Financial troubles and the arts. Indeed. Now, in 1983, it was saved by a great lady called Barbara Dixon. And can anyone tell me the play that she did that ran for 11 weeks? Fantastic. Let's move on, my friends. I'm sorry, my friends, you're going to have to use your imagination now. We're going back to 1772, and we just passed the Liverpool Football Club, but there was someone singing, "Ay, ay, 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 ay." Did you hear that? So I thought, I can't compete with that, so we stopped here. So, you ready? 1772, the Theatre Royal.
1772, the Theatre Royal!
Well, you said it right. I said Royale. I've got like I think it's because I'm thinking about American breakfast.
Samuel L. Jackson.
I am, yes. Now, the first theatre in Liverpool, the first official theatre by royal approval, was the Theatre Royal of 1772. Can you remember back in the Unity, we spoke about if you were not licensed by a noble, you would be a what?
A rogue.
Oh, I like that. So why are you looking at me and not her? Yes, indeed. So rogue. So we all know that, a rogue and a rapscallion. Well, in 1772, King George III granted Liverpool with the royal approval, which meant that they could have an official theatre. And this continued, this theatre, so it meant that you couldn't have a theatre in Liverpool unless you were royal approval. So in 1866, when the Star Inn was opened, that was because the theatre jurisdiction, you didn't have to have royal approval anymore. So that was when all the theatres boomed. When we get to the exhibition, you will see that there's a massive jump from 1772 to the 1800s. You will also see today, ladies and gentlemen, you will be the first Scousers to see the royal stamp of approval. It looks like a giant cheese. Or if you were in the 1980s and you used to buy the aftershave Brute. Did any of you buy that, ladies? Yeah? Any of you bought Brute? You would get a soap on a rope. That's what it looks like. You will see when we get there. Opened the 5th of June, 1772, with the tragedy of Muhammad, followed by The Devil is in Him. Interesting film. Interesting play. Now, the theatre, because it had royal approval, it was restricted to the summer months only. They could only stage stuff in the summer because the only other theatres with royal approval were in Drury Lane in London. So when Drury Lane and Covent Garden theatres were closed, the actors could come to Liverpool for a summer holiday. What joy. Now, in 1772, there was a massive tragedy where a man died in the theatre because there was a false alarm of a fire. Someone told the audience that there was a fire in the theatre. Now the actors went on stage and they declared there is no fire, but never trust an actor. No one believed them. So sadly a poor man was killed falling down the stairs. In 1795 it became a circus venue with tightropes, dancing and equestrian competitions. Can you imagine that? And then, like I said, in 1843 was when the regulations stopped. So the 1866 saw the opening of the Star Inn. When the Star Inn opened with the cheap chops and performances, they couldn't compete. So subsequently, it went quite downhill. And this area, can anyone tell me what the Liverpool Porcupine was? The Porcupine wrote an article about how bad this area was, because there was a really bad stench. Now it's nothing to do with the docks. Can anyone? Can anyone guess why it stank around here? There was something particularly in this area.
It was a livestock market.
There was a livestock market. Good man. You had an avocado as well. It's rare these days to meet a man with a brain. Very good, sir.
I lived there all my life.
So yes, the stench of the St. John's Market and the livestock market. So it was very shabby. In 1887, the venue was turned into Sanger's Hippodrome, which was the largest equestrian concert hall in Europe. Bizarre. Then, sadly, in 1890, it was changed into a cold store. Can anyone guess what a cold store is? A place where you get ice and for meat and whatnot. And it was, if any of you were around in 1970, the cold store was still there with emblazoned in gold letters the name of the cold storage. You see, we had the official theatre outside of London to have royal approval. and we sadly don't have it anymore. It was a theatre store, theatre, concert hall, circus hall, equestrian hall, and it ended up as a cold store. I mean, Iceland is still here, so but it's sad, isn't it? So, and the reason why I'm saying this, folks, is we are the people, we are the citizens of Liverpool that have to ensure that the custodians of our heritage make sure that that heritage is maintained. And these are things that if we had kept them, we would be, well, you know, imagine what that would be like. Anyway, it must be because I'm on Speaker's Corner here and I'm getting political. Oi, 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 oi. Let's move on, let's move on. Behind we have the Empire Theatre. Have you all been here?
The Empire Theatre!
Empire Theatre 1866!
1866!
Now you know at the end I'm going to ask you all about these years. If they weren't written down, we'd never remember them.
Don't ask me, don't ask me.
And you know, if we say around this age, around this time, you know that we don't know. We've forgotten. Now in 1866, there was a venue here called the New Prince of Wales, which was our friend who converted Clayton House to Clayton Hall, to the it was the Prince of Wales. He moved around here and created the New Prince of Wales. The foundation stone was laid. It had 5 arches with pilasters surmounted by carved capitals in which the lion's head served as ventilation. Now you're all looking at it now, it's not here anymore. Yeah, back in the day. And they had the heads of great dramatists and musicians, Schiller, Beethoven, Rossini, and Moliere, who I kind of look a little bit like. I should be in a Moliere today. And that was emblematic of the music and drama. That was it was the first theatre to have a fish-tailed gas burner, car burner. Just a moment, I believe I'm buffering. Because the end is nigh. There we are. I'm back in the room. Now in 1867, it was turned. They changed the name. Can anyone hazard a guess why? It was the Prince of Wales, and they changed it to the Royal Alexandra Theatre because of Princess Alexandra. Now, in 1867, such great artists were here like Sarah Bernhardt and Henry Irving, and in 1985 it became the Empire Theatre, and it opened with Cinderella in 1896, and they brought 200 performers from the Lyceum Theatre in London. Now, in 1911, it got the exclusive rights for Kinemacolor. Can anyone guess what that is? So it's really interesting. We talked before about the animated pictures, 10,000 pictures in the walls. Kinemacolor was an invention by pioneer filmmaker George Albert Smith, and in 1908 he created Nature's Looking Glass, which was the only stereoscopic light motion pictures reproducing the natural colours of nature. So Kinemacolor was like stethoscopes. Bizarre. But then again, I would imagine if we went back to those days and told them what we find entertaining now, they'd think that was quite bizarre, really. Now, between 1914 and 1918, lots of theatre was on that relieved people during the war years. When it was in 1924, the building was demolished, and this new building that we see before us was created. However, it was modelled on New York theatres. Now, it was demolished in 1924. They rebuilt it in 1925 in this style. What do you think it didn't have that it needed? It was modelled on a New York building.
Elevator.
Close. Now think about, what do you do during an interval? Because it was modelled on a New York theatre, they didn't have any bars. because of prohibition. So subsequently, they had to get a bar in there quick, because I'm not going to advocate drinking, but sometimes the plays you see are so bad, unbelievable. Now we're going to just go to one final stop at the top, and then we're going to head into the wall. Is that okay, Randy? Join me. Now, I'm not going to lead you up there to our final theatre because it's no longer there, and I can't glamorise a car park. Are you all familiar with Fraser Street? Shakespeare. Yeah, Shakespeare indeed. So, the Shakespeare, in 1888, we already had 3 first-class venues. The Shakespeare Theatre opened, and with the exception of the Memorial Theatre in Stratford-upon-Avon, there was no other venues in the UK called the Shakespeare.
The Shakespeare, also known as the car park where National Express used to be.
Very good. Now it was constructed out of 1,000 tons of iron and concrete. So what's happened to a lot of the venues so far? Fires, yeah? Fires and finance, that's all the F's. Fires, finances. Well, you would think that this would have saved this venue, but spoiler alert, there's a fire coming in a moment. It opened with a Shakespeare play called As You Like It, and it became also a venue famous for its pantomimes. And in 1901, melodramas, Blood and Thunder. Ooh. Elementary, My Dear Watson. Who's that? Sherlock Holmes, very good. Another lady with an avocado. Yeah? I noticed today, chaps, the ladies are the ones answering all the questions. They're the brains in this operation.
Not just today.
Not just today. Now, in 1941, a lot of the theatre was closed because of the war, and it was used as a corporate. It was used by the Liverpool Corporation as a store for food. It was turned so it's from the ham that was on the stage to the tinned ham for the war.
Fire, finance and fridges.
Yeah, all the F's, yeah. It was opened again in 1842 with Beauty and the Beast. 1942, sorry, with Beauty and the Beast, a pantomime. And because there was a theatre called the Rotunda, and there was one in Bootle that had been destroyed during the war, so they all flocked to the Shakespeare for the pantomime. But because they apparently in those venues, if they didn't like what you were doing, they'd throw tomatoes at you. So they came armed with the tomatoes ready. It then moved away from theatre and it became a cinema, but not the kind of cinema that we would, us respectable citizens would go to. There was films like Strip, Hurrah! And one of my favourites, I think we were in this one. Yeah. Don't Stare, It's Nude! They were actual films, yeah. I would say to you to look it up on YouTube, but I don't want to rush you into the dark web. Now, it became the Pigalle Theatre Club for luxury members, and then in 1957, it was bought by a great chap called Sam Wanamaker, a fantastic socialist. He can anyone tell me what theatre his daughter went on to open? Globe. The Globe. Oh God, you should know that one. Yeah, good. Now, Sam Wanamaker took it over, and he brought plays like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, A View from the Bridge by Arthur Miller to this venue. But sadly, it was funded by a friend of his who was an actress called Miss Anne de Wyman, and she withdrew her funding, even though it had 10,000 members, and it sadly closed. And then it became it was renovated. Within 2 weeks of it having the renovation, guess what happened? A fire, and the fire completely devastated it.
No wonder they bothered making any more, really.
Exactly. Now then, in 1976, that fire destroyed, and when that fire went, the memories of all those players that had been there, everyone from Sarah Bernhardt to Olivia Newton-John, from Alistair Sim to Sasha Distel. And it sadly all wears Je t'aime. Yeah, that was Sasha Distel, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I'm buffering again, Sam. Quick, I'm buffering. It's this cold. It's getting...
Brain freeze, they call it.
So welcome to the Liverpool Lights Up on Liverpool exhibition. Remember we talked about the stamp, the wax seal, that looked like soap on a rope? Behold, it is here. So the exhibition, how the exhibition works is we start with the Theatre Royal from 1772, and then it goes around the various venues. And the idea is you've all been to the locations, or we spoke about where the venues that are no longer here are. But I just want to tell you quite an interesting story about this seal from 1772. Our archivist we were working with was cleaning it for the exhibition because it's the first time it's gone on public display. And when he was cleaning it, his hands went blue and green, and he really freaked out. He was becoming a Smurf. But for those of you who don't know, if your hands go blue and green when you're handling something from the Victorian period, it's because you may have arsenic on your hands. You may have become exposed to arsenic. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if any of you want to ever kill anyone, you know almond also smells like arsenic. So I'm always, I've got a very hipster friend who always makes me an almond latte when I go down and I have to like throw it in the yucca plant next to me because I just think, oh, he's trying to bump me off. So anyhow, he wasn't exposed to arsenic, it was just the leather. But that's, there was an exhibition in the British Library several years ago called Deadly Books. During the Victorian period, they used arsenic everywhere. I think, Mikey, did you tell me Queen Victoria used to use it? Queen of Victoria, the other one. So this, what it looks like Elizabeth I used to put on her face. That's why she didn't smile. That's probably why my mum's not smiling these days. She's using arsenic in her foundation.
She could have Botox.
So please, and also as well,
My sister is in this case in here, so if you want to read about here.
yes, we couldn't put this in the case to last because we didn't want to upset her because hunchback. Very triggering for her.
That's
right. Very triggering indeed. So listen, it's been a really enjoyable walk this morning. Thank you for putting up with us and Nicole. Have you all enjoyed the walk?
Yes, thank you.
There's a lot of history to take in, and it's difficult to digest. This exhibition's on now, and it's on for 2025. So you can come back, tell your friends. Please have a little look. We've been Arts Group. Well, follow me, Gareth and Francois Campbell. Nobody mentioned Fanny. Yeah. And thank you for we've been ArtsGroupie, and we look forward to welcoming you to other projects in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw a lot of you already do, but you can chat up and keep up with us at ArtsGroupie.org.
Yes.
So if you want to add yourself to the mailing list, we send this one email.
Yes.
We don't harass you too much,
Yes,
but it just keeps you up to date with all of our activities. But please enjoy the exhibition, tell everyone about it, and Tony Phil, February or March, it might get extended.
Spoiler alert, because you're all our friends, it's the April. We're not publicly announcing that till next month when we need to know publicity.
Please enjoy. Thank you.